and welcome to our session. Today we're talking about how to optimize your course for online using WebAssign. As a reminder, WebAssign is a platform for math, statistics, physics, engineering, and decision sciences. My name is Shauna Campbell, and I'm the Associate Marketing Manager for WebAssign. And joining me today is Michael Lafreniere, who we'll introduce in just a moment. Before we get started, we wanted to share with you just a few important links and resources you can use throughout the semester. We have a great training site on Cengage.com. So this is a place for you as well as your students to find quick start guides, video tutorials, as well as how-tos, just so you have that one quick reference. There's also a tech check site for WebAssign. So what this does is gives you platform status updates. It's live, so it's updated every 15 minutes. So if your students are having any issues with the WebAssign platform, this is a great place to go to troubleshoot to see if it's actually the WebAssign platform, or it may be their computer or Wi-Fi, which we know in these times comes up. We also have great resources for how-tos and best practices. The help button is probably the most useful thing you'll have on WebAssign. It's located in the top right corner of your WebAssign home screen. And what it does is it's a search feature, so you can search any topic and find out a step-by-step tutorials of how to do something on WebAssign, like rescheduling assignments or setting up a gradebook. So it's a really great resource. We also have our WebAssign blogs. What we really try to do is identify common challenges you're going throughout the semester and quickly choose and identify the features within WebAssign that can help you address those challenges. So it's a great resource. We also have on webassign.com an online courses page. So if you're looking at really specific help for online courses, that's a great resource for you as well. And I know a lot of these links it's a little bit much, but keep in mind that we do have social media. So always follow us on Facebook and Twitter. If you want some quick links or you're going through something throughout the semester, we try to share as much timely content as possible. And then last but not least, we do have a question coding workshop on the 29th, but as well as that, we also have a great content support team based in Raleigh, North Carolina. They're a team of subject matter experts, so we can align you with the person in your specific course, and they can help you create your own questions, create your own assignments, or even explain how something is graded if you're unsure how a question is graded or you want it graded a different way. Great, so leading you through the session today is Michael Lafreniere from Ohio University. We're really excited to have you here today, Mike.
Why, thank you, Shauna. It's such an honor and privilege to be here with everyone today. I'm grateful. I have been at Ohio University for quite a number of years and can share some experiences today that I think are refined outcomes of all the years of trial and error, and some that I can speak to that have been successful with my students. So if it's without further ado, I can switch to my screen. We see any we got a poll. That's what I knew it. I was going to do this. So we've got something new that I'm a little nervous, but also excited at the same time. And that hope is to get a couple of questions out to you just to get an idea of what you may have be bringing to our session today. And we'll be sharing the results here in just a short bit as you make your effort to contribute to the polling optionally if you so choose. To see whether or not you're looking at your course this fall, 2020 actually, in the traditional classroom sense, that's sort of the designated term I give it, or whether we can lump together the hybrid flipped high flex. I'm hearing quite a bit of discussion in that context. Or if you wish to parse out whether you're teaching online in a scheduled manner, much like using Teams or Zoom or some other online meeting tool where students can come together at the predetermined days and times, or asynchronously. It's a common form that I've used over the years where my students can really work at their own pace. And then that uncertainty that we want to leave open for some of you. We have faculty, my colleagues, who are awaiting certain approvals to teach from home, actually, given certain concerns they have with the spread of the virus that we have lingering over all this. So I think we've got some results in. If it's all right to share, I think that's how I'm still learning a little bit how this is going to show up on the poll side of things. Looks like we've got online synchronous taking the lead with 36% of you showing 34 folks in the absolute count sense, so you get an idea of sample size there. 34 people with 36% of the online. And then split almost evenly is between online synchronous, that's where we would teach with students working at their own pace, and the hybrid. So over 50% are online, synchronous, or hybrid. So there's sort of a feel there that I feel pulled into. And so in designing your course, think about these various modes that we may have to resort to when things change in our circumstances. I'm going to talk to how I'm going to address it here in a moment. But then there's a second question here I wanted to see. So we got a lot of online interest, so we'll keep the focus of our webinar in that vein, and then hybrid will certainly, HighFlex will benefit from the online component, so I think we're on pace there. The second question, really looking at how much grading time do you spend per course each week? And this may be a surprise question. This may not be something you're fully calculating. I've not really sat down and aggregated it until of recent months, trying to get an idea to have some sanity in my work schedule. Online has required a bit more effort and time, and to keep things in check within reason, to sort of forego the perfection that I may have chosen to pursue. I'm looking at something within the scope of manageable time. So per course, this could be a little vague too, because each of us may have a 1-hour course, a 3-hour course, maybe predominant 4-hour calculus course, semester system versus quarters. And so those do make it a bit difficult to compare with all the possibilities. But looks like the poll results have come in. And so we've got ourselves a predominance of over 60% are 3 hours or more. So roughly split, 36% 3 hours or per week, or 4 hours per week at 32%. And that's 30 participants at 32% to get sample size comparison there. All right, so let me go ahead. Today's learning objectives, that helps set the stage. I'm curious to how much time, because this plays into automatic grading. I do try to give reasons why we polled you those questions and how much we might be able to carve out for automated grading that you might find advantageous with WebAssign. So we're going to look first at the structure of our courses, the flow, if you will, from a homework assignment tool that has been popular for tools such as WebAssign, to where they can be used maybe a little more extensively into a learning pathway, the delivery, the modality of hybrid, HighFlex, or the online synchronous, asynchronous components. How do you mix and mash those together, for a less technical term there? And then we'll turn our attention to video. There's a great deal of discussion in some of the circles I frequent, both online and in person, and the incorporation of videos both from the publisher, but those you may make or choose to borrow from the open resources that we may have available, or the YouTube, Vimeo channels that tend to provide some content that we might be able to freely incorporate into our course. And then there are other resources beyond video that we'll talk about as a second learning objective. We'll have a couple of poll questions for that. And then try to finish off with the utilization of WebAssign specifically for that component of independent student learning, as to what we can do to help encourage our students, but at the same time find out where we need to intervene in that independent student learning aspects to make sure our students are meeting learning objectives. So with that, I'm going to borrow the screen to transition to something of a live demonstration. So I'm going to stop this screen sharing from others. I hope I'm okay. And I'm going to commit to this. You can see the poll there. And I want to start off first, before I dive in, is to echo what you saw Shauna mention in terms of the blog, all those websites and things. I went ahead and made a special emphasis. I'm hoping all this is making its way. I don't hear any alarms going off indicating otherwise. And that what you're seeing on the screen is a blog site. And so there is some benefit to keeping a tab on that, a bookmark. Cengage.com is the easy part. Then they merge two words together with WebAssign blog together. That makes sure you are able to see this. Check in the chat here. So I think everything's looking okay. I've got some indication that that's the case. So we'll go make our way over to the idea of workflow, the student flow. And this would probably be the least desirable, but it's certainly functional. And I'm going to start off with this concept of talking about the learning path that you may want to give to your students. So in WebAssign, if you're already familiar, as I have some belief you are, the ability to add assignments can be rather voluminous. You can certainly add and add and add, and then within those course shells, you can certainly add many questions. I've heard in the neighborhood of hundreds of questions in some cases being placed in assignments. I've not found the upper bound, but there have been some who've been approaching that record level volume. And so what we're looking at here is just really a homework approach. And I like the idea of having this course shell, if you will, a template that I can build from. I actually build many of my courses when I do have to start from scratch with this type of template in mind. So I don't limit myself to the names that this learning path might unfold. I don't stay with that week 1 designation or homework 1, 2, 3, somewhat uninformative entry into each assignment, not sure what it's really about. I tend to go in with this flow, and I tend to click on these assignments. And if you're familiar with assignments, you can structure them. Once they're created, it's possible to go in and make a change to and create to math XXX, and we can start to create some path or learning material to this design as we go in and edit that first assignment, and not have to constrict ourselves to that first limitation of something that's just, well, rather cryptic. So we can kind of play around with some of these things to start to lay out what you otherwise might use in terms of your learning management system. So these are some of the things you can do aesthetically for your students. This is what it's starting to take shape up. We can go to the second assignment, and we can go through this process of video watch of some kind that you may want the students to partake in. And so that's certainly a possibility. For Module 1, maybe you give some sort of designation. I've been learning to get away from more week references and more modular so that I can adjust for shortened semesters that we may have gone through recently, may see experienced in the future, but also summer teaching or shortened term teaching. And so what you're seeing here is the building out, the overriding of what otherwise is a very generic shell, and allowing me to add content that's not necessarily limited to assessments, homeworks, and quizzes. You can notice that you can incorporate in these assignments, they're pretty much containers. And I'm wanting you to get a glimpse of that. That detail was intentional, so that when you see the broader picture I'm about to share with you, how you might construct the flow of your assignments and create a learning path, possibly on a modular basis. And then you can choose to culminate this after week 1. Maybe we go down a few assignments and we choose to create a Module 2 approach or something to that effect. That certainly is a matter of changing the title of it in a way that I think you'll see rather noticeably here. The modular indentation that I tend to favor, you can start to then carve out where there's transition between groups of assignments. And those assignments, I want to stress, do not always have to be mathematical, WebAssign, chemistry, engineering, physics type problems. They can be informative, syllabus reviews, video lectures, activities of a group or independent nature can be nestled within each of these assignments for students to make progress on. Because the benefit of WebAssign's conditional release allows you to unfold these assignments when the students are ready. And if you strive for a mastery approach, then you can certainly take advantage of that conditional release. So I wanted to give you that glimpse of what we started out with, which was a pretty standard list of assignments. It can get rather lengthy here. I've got well into the neighborhood of 60 assignments. You find yourself taking a template like this, and if you have more than you need, it's really rather easy once they're already in this shell, this template that I build from. I can go into the reschedule tool that's available at the top and just turn off those that I don't need. It's a matter of just keeping those that I need with a flick of the switch. And if you have a need for more, you've got in reserve additional assignments that, although they're maybe generic in title, you saw how I can edit those rather quickly, save, and then you shorten your list to those items that are relevant to your learning path. And that makes it much easier for you to make things on the fly as we go through this time of change as the semester unfolds. And you'll notice I've chosen to just offer 46 assignments as I've mapped out in my syllabus, the containers, if you will, that I tend to look at assignments in WebAssign as. So that's the generic, that's the first learning path that's out there. What button did I hit for reassigning? So to do some of this, there's two things that I want to stress in answer to that chat question. And that is the ability to change these titles. I just chose the editing capability. I click on the assignment itself. So if I want to change homework number 11 here, that's sitting there waiting for me to populate with a new title and question content, I can go in and take advantage of that by just clicking on the item as listed with my yellow hand there, or I can choose the edit button, which is quite a bit more obvious. The second thing that I used as a gateway to making changes was this reschedule assignment button. It tended to fade in the background for me. These actually both now deserve a great deal of prominence to structure your flow of your course and change things around. But that reschedule assignments button that I just now clicked affords you that scheduling button that allows you to act like a kill switch of sorts, just turn things on and off at a moment's notice, but still leave it there should you change your mind and want to bring an assignment to the forefront for students to engage in, sort of hiding things. There are other ways to do it with dates that are affording you through due dates, availability, and view until. So there's a level of customization that can go even further. But in the end, I went down and I turned off quite a few assignments just to give you that sample of what it looks like, all of which will be in the recording that should make its way out to you through your email that you use to sign up for this webinar. They usually follow 24, 48 hours, or at least by the end of a week when you have a series of webinars that are conducted like we are doing this time around. So the pathway, to get back to the focus of the pathway that's available to you, you have a number of resources in WebAssign that afford you the pathway that can be designed for your needs. I'm a little ahead of myself there. I didn't quite want to do that one. Course packs, a popular choice, widely used by many WebAssign users, affords you this pathway to be created as you wish to mirror the sequence of material in a textbook. And so here you're seeing an example of taking a rather recent release of Movani's engineering application. So it's more than just mathematics, physics, chemistry. There's other items in finance I've noticed, statistics, and business types of uses for the benefits of using WebAssign's open-ended grading symbolically and numerically and so forth. You're witnessing here, which took me really about 2 minutes, maybe 3, to drag and drop a series of question assignments that were pre-populated, correlated to the book with the author's pedagogy in mind. And so I just grabbed the ones that interest me in this particular topic, where these came from pre-designed course packs. You're not stuck, you're not limited, you're actually given, I think, an advantage of pace and access to go about adding this content and then edit it as you wish. You can change the names, you can restructure the titles, you can choose to order them as you wish, and change the questions, add custom questions, add PowerPoints and YouTubes that we'll talk about, YouTube videos. But all of this course pack content, I don't want to be remiss in not showing you exactly where they reside. In the case of the class schedule tool, where I'm going right now, to turn on these features, you have the ability to create your learning path with these rather high fidelity assignments aligned by the author's content to your textbook with quick ease. You can set up a course that's going to have great fidelity to the students and the content that you've chosen out of the textbook. What I'm doing right now is I've chosen to click on the class schedule link, and it's here that we're going to see those course pack items. Now you might be, I think, questioning where did I get all these items, and I know they're over here in the scheduled list that I just dragged and dropped for those of you familiar with WebAssign. It turns out, if you're not already familiar, that the course packs reside in this schedule tool for you to download. And when you do that, you get all this yellow content, this additional course pack material that can help create that learning pathway that I'm taking advantage of here from Movani. So these are some of the items that are out there for you to take advantage of. I got quite a few of them. When you click on it, there's the link that I'm referring to. That course pack item will unveil itself. Depending on the author's preference and the publishing design that they've chosen for that textbook, you'll see either one course pack or many. Some I've seen upwards of 18 to 20 some odd course packs in a particular textbook layout for different learning paths. Hoffman's notorious for some of the co-requisite material of learning paths where they've actually constructed the course packs to create the very learning path you may want to adopt. So that can vary. So that idea of a course pack, you notice these assignments are really the same ones that I found inside of my WebAssign assignment. I'll zoom in on those so you get a real close view of what I'm referring to. I could choose to change these names. I can certainly go in through a click of my mouse, open these items up, and then I can then make changes to the title. I can give it my own special design, and I can even go in and alter the questions by pooling, changing randomizations. I could even edit these if you want to take advantage of the question coding webinar coming a little later. So
Mike, when you're, just real quick, when you're on the other screen and you're organizing your assignments, are the module number assignments just subdividers? Is that how you organize your course?
I do, and that's a great transition to help me keep on pace because I can get a little talkative, to say the least. So yeah, they're really just dividers. And so that's a good segue for this design that has had a fair amount of popularity because of the resources that you can gather from Cengage that are both freely available. In this case, I'll zoom in as best I can here so you can see this a little better. what we're seeing is the diagnostics. So there are diagnostic tools out there. There's requisite materials. These are pre-calculus exercise assignments you may want to adopt and turn on and off as you may need. You might want to turn them on in the middle of the semester and have a quick setback review. There are even readiness exams that I've used as well. I even have a week 0. And as Shauna had alluded to, I do strive for a certain aesthetic or flow or grouping, if you will. And so these actually are assignments that contain nothing, and they have no point value. They don't affect the student's grade. They're relegated to a category that has no impact. That's one way I manage much of this content. You'll notice here the generic nature of my naming convention here for this course. I've changed this. I no longer use the WK. I'm more into a modular design because of all the time adjustments that I've had to deal with time and again that forced me to reconsider the design. But as I alluded to, the diagnostics, the prereq, the co-req material, the no credit items, I categorize them. And thankfully, WebAssign has some batch features that lets you go in and adjust assignments in bulk. So your learning pathway can take rather drastic changes, but across the categories you've chosen to designate. You don't have to do that, but it really does help you make minor changes on broad sweeping steps with very little effort. It also feeds into the gradebook capabilities of WebAssign that can carry from one semester to the next, built right in. And of course, there are integration things that we won't go into today, but there are ways to take this data, this scores material, this content, and move it into LMS systems such as Blackboard and Canvas, just to name a couple. So this is an interesting learning path that has gained some benefit over time. The idea of organizing your content both in quiz, pre-quiz, homework. So the naming convention, the nomenclature you choose to adopt is at your full control. If I were to go a little further, you can see here, I've used other means. This is a playground course that I actually have. You're welcome to take a look and see things on this screen, to maybe screenshot and ask more about it at a later time. But the idea, I want to organize my playground course in ways that assignments that focus on content coverage, problem solving, and student engagement. So it helps me see things. I look at WebAssign as packaging up courses for purposes of sharing with other colleagues. I look at assignments as packaging up questions that I want to share with other colleagues versus just QIDs and AIDs, if you're familiar with that nomenclature. Now, today, what I'm going to unveil to you, and I just did a little bit of a sneak peek the other day, is the actual design I'm currently using. You'll see the failure of this at the moment in the week. This is sort of a carryover from just last semester in spring. And the design that I'm using here now, you can see, I think it's made obvious that during week 1, there's a fair amount of welcome and orientation that goes into. I purposely start gradual with my students, mainly acquainting them with the technology and ferreting out what they're using in technology. And I've been able in WebAssign to go from PCs, Macs, of course, those tend to be the popular choices with a preference for Chrome browser and all those, but also iPads, tablets that are Android-based, even phones that are Android and iPhone. I've had the ability to show students to use the full complement of graphing, open-ended questions, polling, those things from all within WebAssign. So all the aggregating of data stays in one place. It makes it rather nice for me to sort through and analyze how my students are performing. And so in this design, I'm still taking advantage of sort of some underscores there to create that tab feature, but the modules that I now adopt were easy to somewhat transition. The other thing that's worth noting in my design is this is an asynchronous, so it adjusts for what I pulled earlier with the questions of how much you are going to spend in online asynchronous, synchronous, or high flex. I designed for the asynchronous, and then I complement it when permitted in this day and age by lectures and group activities when classroom and synchronous time slots are allocated for me to teach by. And so this can stand alone pretty much like a flipped classroom, and I complement it with the online demand or in class, or we have a distributed video network system at our university where we beam our lectures across multiple campuses. Now, I've chosen the due dates this last 6 to 9 months. I think I'm upwards of 9 months now. Notice they're all the same. And this can be quite the challenge. The huge drawback is the procrastinators that are in my courses and my own difficulty in managing students at various points of learning. That too is a drawback to this design, and there's probably others. But overall, I no longer have extension requests. I am able to focus on students who are falling behind and help them push them and do things that they become glaringly known when you start to analyze the score results. And so I incorporate bonuses or incentives to complete the group of assignments for students to actually complete by a date. They get a nominal. It really is in name only. It's so insignificant to the overall grade, but it seems to incentivize quite a few students to chase those bonus points since they're in the homework category. Most of my weighted grade is on assessments of a high stakes exams and midterms and finals. When they go into such an assignment, you'll notice that this is really not one taking full advantage. This has actually got the incorporation of video we'll cover in just a bit. There's YouTube videos, and there's really just announcements. I have adopted this approach of announcements each week, what to do in the form of a question, and I ask my students to confirm that they've read these announcements. It's fascinating when I get questions and I go, well, where did I make a mistake and cause you to believe that? You know, those sorts of questions that seem a little bit outside the realm of whether they read the material or not. And in some cases, I have made mistakes, certainly, but for the most part, it does put the onus back on the student to go back. It's challenging. I'm not saying it's without some push from students to just ask them to ask me to spoon feed them, if you will, allow me that phrase. Then the reading assignment, so I give that, and I also talk about some legacy items that we were using Flash for a while or any other aspects of the book. You can see how I talk about accessing the ebooks and giving them orientation, really driving home that point that they would be going through the process of reading their material. And then I actually outline really a screenshot of that modular approach that you may have alluded to, what they should be completed. And I'm changing this as we speak from week to module 1 so that I can have irrespective due dates. It gives more flexibility. But these are just custom questions, and they stand pretty much the test of time. This is the second semester with a little bit of editing. I'll be able to put this forward for continued use. That was just the first assignment. And then from there, you can have a host of assignments. Here you can see the entering math WebAssign questions. I like this one a lot. It mainly helps me uncover student technology issues. I'm surprised by quite a few students not necessarily being tech savvy. They aren't aware of different browsers. They may have concerns of trying to do all of their work on their cell phone. We have rural setting where students have very little access to the internet or technology, and so they're doing it with what they have. And so I asked them to complete this WebAssign Entering Math Answers assignment to check out whether or not they can see these types of things. If there's security settings, they're using their relative's computer and it's locked down in ways that prohibit access to the JavaScript that's enabling this type of HTML5 access. Once all that's sorted out.
Could you show entering an answer into a question just so we can see what that looks like?
Certainly, yeah. I'll take the this one. If you notice, the questions are rather prompted. They see the answer and all they're really doing is replicating. So this isn't a high math intensive activity. I even include a video at the top of me doing this assignment. So I've done this quite a bit where I actually record myself and it holds up. It stands the test of time quite a bit, and I found ways to even complement it. So let's try this one. I'm just randomly picking one. I tend to use my keyboard, so I'm using the caret symbol to type in the exponent for 3 and the arrow keys that afford me the ability to type things in, and I can then continue this expression 2xy squared, and then I'm able to close that out with a parenthesis that completes the process. Now, this allows the student also to try these tools off to the far right. And so those tools are available for students to click on. There's a number of these tools that are already built into the symbolic generator of Mathematica that's basically behind this. I've even used this answer box for students to convey their proof ideas. So if they want to type in a proof, I've used it. It has about 45 characters, and it's been helpful for me to look at things like SQRT. You can do S plus 1, right? We can do some things. That's a little silly. Sorry for that typo. But I think you get the idea, and then you can do sin x. There's certainly with trig functions. There's quite a few. You got alpha. You got your Greek letters. I'm typing just stuff in. Union for other symbols. And so there's a lot here that are ready for the keyboard. Many of them, the syntax is aligned with popular tools like Microsoft Excel. And so this has been fascinating. When I go to this realm of a long drawn out phrase, I typically grade that subjectively. I don't have the skill set to turn that into auto grading just yet. But up to that point, auto grading will do just fine on expressions, equations, numerics, even comma separated expressions like this. So this really gets me a chance to see that the students can navigate these tools ahead of time, give them some experiences of case sensitivity, the idea of variables being slightly different. It really has eliminated a great deal of technological and prepping them for what they're going to encounter. So I include number lines, graphical tools of various types. If technology changes, and then this happened where they improve the graphing tool, what I do is I just go in and I add a hint. So if technology changes, I made a video, I have the ability to go in and set hints. So I actually add hints in case things change, and they do. So question 16, the graphing tool updated over so many years ago. And I add a little hint, a little video that says, oh, by the way, this graph tool now looks a little different on your computer. Here's some additional insights to help you navigate this new interface. And I just show them that hint after they make at least one attempt to try on their own. So there's a lot here, and this carries over from semester to semester. And if I need to tweak it, I can. So this learning path, let me get back to the focus of our time together. I'm carrying a little too long. Once you get through this, you can then design this into a modular approach. I'm going to show you that here now. So this is more of the updated version of a different class with the modular design. I don't think you'll see too dramatic of a departure from earlier. But here what you're seeing is that announcements, reading requirement, commitment from the students. Then I incorporate video content. And then I have that same entering math answers. And now I actually expect my students to convey their mathematical thinking procedurally and conceptually with their own video returned to me to grade, back to why I need to know how much grading I'm going to manually spend each week on each student, so I can then allocate how much viewing time of their responses I can set aside. And so when you go into these, you can take a glimpse of some of this. I use our proprietary university video recording tool where I'm embedding the video content that we're using from a software provider known as Panopto. And when the students enter this, I get a full range of seeing exactly what they watched. I use a lot of OneNote. I use a lot of digital tools, and I do the picture in the corner to add some personal touch to it. But for the most part, this is my attempt to give students the insight to what I'm seeing, how it correlates with their readings, their materials, and then walking them through so that they have some recourse for that independent learning that is likely to take place in this classroom. If I'm teaching in the classroom, they're expected to watch these before coming to class, and I can actually see that they've done that because of the access. So these would then precede access, such as polling questions or assignments that we're going to do in class that will dedicate class time. I'll use conditional release to make sure that students are indeed following along. And they'll fall behind. I have had those students who choose to procrastinate. If I have a group of students that are in a classroom setting, I then have the ability to hold them accountable. And if they miss class, I reach out to them. I'm very interested in making sure my students attend to what they signed up for and help them as best I can to help achieve that goal and ultimately learn the material. So this is the learning path that's out there for us to consider with conditional release and others. I'm going to pause and then we're going to transition. I'm seeing some questions here. How to embed video in WebAssign. We're going to transition to that. And then do I duplicate the content in my LMS or primarily use WebAssign like it is an LMS? I've actually chosen to use it like an LMS, but I am finding it advantageous to look back to Blackboard. If you notice, I'm a Blackboard institution user, and so this is what my course would look like in Blackboard from a teacher side. So I have links, and I primarily drive my students out of WebAssign, out of Blackboard to WebAssign, but I give them a lot of redundant information, so I parallel that as well. But I found it advantageous to just use WebAssign as an LMS. I've really probably pushed it beyond its homework intentions that it had many, many years ago in the late 90s when it first seemed to come about from a physics professor. Let's pause, and Shauna, if you have some direction, I'm going to transition over to the video item. I think we're in a place where we can do that. Looking at time.
I will share my screen. And while I'm doing this, Mike, do you want to share what pen you're using to write on your screen?
Oh, yes, that's a popular request. Thanks for that. I should have stated that. I'm a big fan of writing on the screen, and I'm using the pen for the first time, actually. I can hold it up in my video screen, but I'm not trying to recommend this software. It's just what I use. I think there are many tools out there that are as good, if not better. The thing I would recommend to help you find annotate, the thing I would find is annotate tools for the screen. That's the search, screen annotate tools. And then find the one that you like. There's a lot of free trials out there. But I happen to use one that I paid $30 years ago. It's been robust for me, called Ink2Go. And I've been mostly writing on the screen with my mouse. I have a touch screen. I have an ink stylus, but I usually reserve that for more math-intensive writing, and I have a computer that does that. This is what it looks like. It tucks away on the side. It has a lot of stuff I don't use, but there's the writing tool sort of that's in there. Enough of that. So great question. It really does help you present and show things, I think, with emphasis in our online world. A worthwhile item. So a poll should be making its way out, and we want to transition from learning paths that are on the screen, the current state of affairs that I'm using with some overview, to video content. And I want to get some ideas so I can try to adjust on the fly here, so to speak. If you're incorporating videos this fall, as the question, how do you prefer to use them? So are you going to use video links that you're going to just provide students, whether in the LMS, as Dee Dee had raised, or if you're choosing to incorporate them in WebAssign, as we'll go over today? I like the embed video portion myself. I'm going to hopefully share something with you called a YouTube playlist that has added a lot of time on my hands to do other things than put videos in places throughout my course. No plans for videos is certainly an option. There are many other ways to instruct, both with group work, Zoom meetings, and things that are live that I think are a better choice if having such an option. Well, the results are in. We've got over, nope, not, well, yeah, I can say it this way. 95% of you are going to use some sort of video. So that's pretty overwhelming. That totals 50% of you are going to embed. So 55 respondents for 50% to give you sample size there. And so embedding videos, that's a great segue for what we're wanting to do. There's a second question, I think, on this. Yes, there we go. So I want to know if you're going to want to monitor that video watching. So there's different ways I've chosen to try to pry into my students' world to see if they're indeed taking advantage of the content that I share. And if you want to monitor or even grade the students' video engagement. For years, I was able to actually, in my opinion, grade the students' reading comprehension. So I would have reading assignments. I would use a tool called Edpuzzle with WebAssign to watch, sort of linger over how much my students were reading, and I would have questions that would be interspersed that would have them read. So that was my attempt to try to quantify that. All right, so we're seeing quite a bit of response coming in this as well. Thank you for that. We're seeing 40% monitor and grade student. Yes, you want to do that. I prefer that. I can tell you with my long-standing classes, I have a better chance at identifying that material. I have session analytics, so my university allows us using Panopto, and so I can see the response rate of certain videos. This one is no longer, this was a semester course, and you can actually see the views drop off or the time spent, and I even can see the average number of minutes delivered. I'm not going to scroll and divulge student information here, but there's percent complete, so it really does give me some quick glances of what students are doing in this aggregated sense. So you're seeing the behind the scenes aspect of tools that your university may have adopted. We at Ohio University have adopted a tool called Panopto, and I'm not recommending it or denying it, it's just what we use. And so I have my video content organized that I roll from semester to semester as sort of the base, and I can see how students are behaving it with statistics. So that's one example that I wanted to paint a picture of for you, and that's what's embedded in these WebAssign items. So we'll talk about how to embed that. The other possibility is to use YouTube. And so, surprise, it comes up recommended, but I've got quite a few. I follow this fellow. He's fun to watch, math whiz of sorts. And so when you look at videos you find on the internet that you may want to borrow, I caution you and make sure you're aware that there's a way to share or embed such items. And so that's going to be the base for us to take advantage of. If we're going to be able to monitor students to see if they're watching videos, we got to have some control over those videos. If you choose to borrow some from the internet, it's a little difficult but not impossible to actually monitor student engagement with even videos you don't even make. I would
so Mike, do you want to take back sharing? I know everybody wants to see your screen.
Oh, I am so sorry.
That's okay.
So sorry. Oh, folks, you've been kind to indulge me that long. I do this to my students on occasion. I am sorry. So, oh, goodness gracious, Sean. All right, so enough of that. My apologies to all of you, sincerely. I'm lost where I left off. What you want to do is you want to be able to You can certainly monitor your students' progress. If you've embedded videos from your own proprietary schools tools, you can certainly see their progress through downloads, through viewing, and average minutes completed %. So that was what I believe is where I failed to show you earlier. Then if you happen to not have your own video tool, you can use something like YouTube. And with YouTube, you can find content across the internet. Here's a fellow, Arthur Benjamin is what I was alluding to earlier, that I get kick out of every so often. And you're looking for this sharing ability. So if you have VoiceThread, YouTube, Edpuzzle, goodness gracious, Desmos activities that are recorded, all sorts of fun stuff, GeoGebra animations that you want to share, you're looking for this share button that comes with many of these online cloud tools. And instead of looking for the link itself, which is sufficient, that's what many of you were seeking, to find those links to share, I seek out tools that give me a little more ability to control the embedding nature of the video content. So I choose to use the embedding code that puts a visual cue to that video right inside of the destination, such as my LMS, Blackboard, Canvas, or what I prefer is really where the questions are being asked in WebAssign. The code typically for embedding includes this rather interesting tag syntax known as iframe, so you'll know you're in the right place. So we'll copy Arthur Benjamin for our demonstration today, but you could just as well have your own content. If you have your own channel, and I make them frequently, I'll make a quick channel and make another one and just add a video to it and give it a name. And this one's called OUC Math for my students. And I unlist, I don't share mine publicly. I just keep them for my students and my internal uses, even though the links could be found. I'm not worried if they are. But I make videos of my own choosing, and I'm able to then share those out. And so I've been making some this summer to try to add as students draw inquiry. But my plan is to not share these videos. I'm not interested so much in sharing these. I'm more interested in sharing playlists. So I'm going to talk about that a bit in a minute as well. So if I were to go in and make a video, if we were to put together some content for our students that we want them to see, let's go ahead and bring an assignment over for us to enter into WebAssign. So if I wanted to add a video to a course pack assignment, this introduction to the engineering profession, just for the sake of ease, it was quickly available, you can edit and place that Arthur Benjamin video in any of these assignments at the assignment level, at the question level. If you go in to edit an assignment, you have the ability to paste that content, that copied content from YouTube, from the different video editing tools, screencast, what have you, looking for that iframe code from GeoGebra. You can embed it right in the instructions is my recommendation versus the description. It tends to show up better. It tends to distribute nicer with the bandwidth of students in rural settings. It's a much cleaner presentation in my subjective opinion. And when you go to save such an embedding of content, what you'll notice is that video then can be previewed. It's possible to preview that video so that you can see there's our Arthur Benjamin, and now he's a part of that assignment at the top for students to take part in. So students can navigate through question by question and have that video content available to them in that assignment. Now what happens as time has gone by, when I started embedding videos, students would ask more questions, they'd want more access to things right at the point of contention where they're wrestling with problems. And I thought, all right, I think I can meet them at that point of need. And so I shifted my attention away from embedding videos like this, using code from YouTube. Instead of that embed approach that I paste inside of instructions and save with that assignment, I've chosen to use YouTube playlists. And so with playlists, I'm going to share with you, you have the ability to convey the material in a more compact way for your students to then shop around, so to speak, the content they need. Notice it doesn't look much different in this assignment. This assignment has that almost same square-like feature for a YouTube video that the students, frankly, just click on and play. And then there's the questions below. Well, instead of a video of a singular nature and all the YouTube banner indicators and things of that nature, I've chosen to incorporate a playlist here so my students have this extra feature near the top that it opens up and unfolds all the videos I've chosen to associate with this assignment. a host of resources. I've probably gotten overkill here. It looks like it's up to 79. But I get questions, and you might even see duplications of questions where students have asked time and again, how do you do question number 7? What's your take on that? What's the concept? I don't quite understand. And so I'll add another video. And instead of embedding video after video in WebAssign, I simply just allocate it to a playlist that is associated with that assignment. The playlist can grow and shrink as I need. This assignment list from at the time I was doing chapter playlists, I've changed my approach on that. But I'm able to keep that managed separately. And my colleagues, I can share, I can add student recommended videos to the playlist. It just updates in near real time for my students to take advantage of.
And Mike, do you embed the playlist the same way you do it?
I do. Yeah. For the sake of recording, so you have some means of replicating this and get truly something that you can take to your own classrooms, I'll show you in quick haste how that would look. So I went ahead and set this up. So instead of looking at individual videos, the so-called content that YouTube describes, if you have your own studio, you have your own channel, this channel feature is available when you're in your account. You just go to the top right. There's a YouTube studio. So this is a little bit quick, but it's in the recording. I think you'll be worthwhile to go back and play. The playlist features is what I'm using now that Shauna alluded to. When you go to the playlist, you'll have as many as you like. I haven't found an upper bound just yet. And some of these are new. I've been adding new playlists as I go, depending on the course. I'm still trying to figure out my nomenclature. But on chapter 9, if I were to do a quick search for chapter, CH, I think we got 12 choices here. Try to find something. There's chapter 15. You can see some of these. There we go. There's the one with 79 videos. Really carried away. Probably one of my first. So you have the ability to go into these playlists and alter them. So as you shop around for videos on the internet, you can save videos you find to these playlists in your account. And then ultimately, it too has a share button. So as Shauna had wisely pointed out, the idea, when you click on that share button, it comes with that same embedding feature. And you can just take this code. You saw this earlier. You can rewind and play that video back later, but you can see that's the picture that was conveyed. And that's what I send over into WebAssign. I copy that same code and I embed it so that it shows up in the instructions. And what I do over time, as a student will come to me and they'll say, you know what, Lafreniere, I need another 9.7 question, 9.1 or something. I'll make a question in my content, my library of videos. Let me go back to that. In my content, I'll go through and I'll make a new video and I'll just check it and add it to another playlist. The beauty is some of these videos have multiple destinations for a final exam review. They might be good for a specific homework problem or quiz. I can repurpose them in ways that don't cause me additional work to recreate the whole video. And so I drop down a list. I can check multiple boxes and send this across multiple playlists. I've actually gotten to the point now when my students go into their playlist, they actually get an intro how to use playlists because students aren't even aware. There's quite a few that just don't know what playlists are capable of. And so when they go into an assignment these days, I think you'll see it here. I actually have a how-to video. Not that one. I guess I haven't updated it, but it's in this one. Yeah. So they actually get a little bit of a welcome video. So there it is, how to use YouTube playlists. So some kids have taken a while to find that little icon, so they're not as tech savvy or aware. But for you and I as instructors, I highly recommend it. To get started, you might have noticed a bit of work. Certainly wouldn't dismiss that, but the return on time spent saved in that early investment, and then the ease at which you can then start to add more videos to your playlist without having to re-embed has been transformative. So video embedding, how can we check to see our students are engaged and really what content exists at the ready for you to take advantage of? I would recommend you look to the resources tab first and foremost if you want. And if you were to take advantage of the resources tab, depending on the textbook you have available to you, this is Stewart Calculus, a very popular choice that I've noticed with colleagues. They have a whole range of videos that you can take advantage of. They've even gone to the extent of compiling and cross-listing them, or you can just simply turn them on, and these by default are turned off, so your students would not see these unless you approve for them to do so. They can come with the PowerPoints if you want, the PPT files that I'm designating here, the videos. These are certainly available for you to designate for use, but for engagement, I would recommend you take and embed these, and that's where these links that they provide you with a greater ease, you can certainly put them anywhere in your course that students need access in composition with the assignments. So let me show you a little more deeply, though, the engagement side of things. So I tend to have my students see videos, watch them. You saw the flow of my learning paths. I've been able to watch their completion of videos. I've used tools that closely scrutinize their exact seconds watching. I have Panopto. If you want to use something freely available, there's a tool called Edpuzzle is what I'm using here. It's a video embed tool that takes the YouTube videos and allows you to control the flow of video so that a student can't fast forward. They can't necessarily skip around, and you can intersperse question spots within the video. These are good if you happen to use a video you want to use time and time again. So one-offs, I would not go to this extent of engagement checking. So what I have here is that you would have momentary points where the student would reach a milestone, maybe 50 seconds in, and then they would be asked to answer a question. In the early iteration of this, my screen size is a little off, sorry about that. I would typically let the student answer the question in Edpuzzle, but the data would be staying in Edpuzzle. I just couldn't stand going back and forth from WebAssign to Edpuzzle to see things. What I found helpful is that when the student reaches a milestone where a question prompt is provided, I draw their attention to the question in WebAssign. That way the data stays aggregated within the assessment platform for me to use for conditional release, for me to use for my reports, for checking of learning objectives. So what you'll see here in about a few more seconds is Edpuzzle creates these stopping points. The student cannot fast forward. You get closed captioning based on what YouTube provides, but there's that prompt. And instead of a multiple choice question in Edpuzzle these days, I drive them to answer question number 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're open-ended, they're more robust than what Edpuzzle provides, and it allows the students to keep all their data in one area. I do not load my videos in Edpuzzle, so I am not using the paid version of what's available here. I'm just simply using the free viewing aspects that they're affording us as teachers and adding these milestones within the video where I need them to confirm as a student that they're engaged, they're watching. And I do notice that students will just hit play and walk away, it seems, as though they go to make dinner, and then they're asking questions that were already in the video that they could have answered. So they have the ability to rewind, and you can actually see and determine when they do things like that. It actually tracks all that in Edpuzzle. I no longer look at that watch history. I'm more interested in just collecting their feedback through the WebAssign open-ended questions. So let me pause. We're closing in on 7 minutes. In terms of independent student path, I'd like to transition from video embedding. So we were able to at least embed videos. We found some resources from Cengage, the list of videos that you might have available. There's an incredible range of those. When you start to go in, I want to really revisit this. You start to see what's possible when you click on these. They have quite the range where you can start to take advantage of what's possible. The videos can also be embedded with interactive tools. In the case of calculus, a very popular one for conceptual building is Explore It. So there's a lot here that you can certainly take advantage of incorporating into your course. So different video techniques of embedding. I've used my own lectures, and Edpuzzle is another one as well. But to help with the independent student learning, the nature of what we want to end with here for students to complete a course. What I've chosen to do in that regard is have my students, let me try to catch my way here. I lost my way a bit. Have them complete, that's because I dragged it over here. Material and independent materials or resources that give me the chance to see their work. As you may have noticed, I asked my students to submit videos in return to convey their thinking, and they can do this in a conditional release, these icons that you're seeing on the screen. And so they can flow through this. One way to do this is with Show My Work. So it is possible in the platform to just have that feature turned on any of your questions. If you select questions from Cengage, or if you make your own questions, these kinds of things can actually be triggered with the Show My Work feature. You can go into an assignment, you can turn on, allow the students to show their work, show their independent thinking, get them to convey something of substance that you can assess and determine, is this really student using an online tool to help them get answers, or are they really putting thought and conveyance of concepts in their work? So you can turn on the Show My Work features that are making it optional, required, and the like. And when the students do this, their work can come through in the form of high fidelity of mathematical symbols. If we go in and take a look at this Show My Work feature as a student would, you can see here they can enter their math with a great deal of mathematical accuracy. They can upload the files that they chose to write out, paper, assignments, things of that nature, and you can then return grades and content in the form of documents. I tend to return it in the form of videos, so I actually just look at their work. I hit a record button over to the side of the screen here. I keep it handy, the little red dot over to the right. I can record the screen. It goes to the cloud like Screencast-O-Matic or other sites, and I'm able to just give my students video responses. So that's some of the ways that allows my students to proceed at different paces in independent learning. And then I copy and paste, I build things out with my rubrics that I can use over and over again for misconceptions that seem to commonly come about. And I've even tried to thwart them from happening by my changes of lectures. So I've found myself giving certain feedback that I now incorporate on the front end of my lectures to have students experience before going down that path.
Do you have a tool that you recommend students use to record video to upload to you?
I do, actually. Thank you. That's a good way to kind of culminate this all together for that independent approach of conveyance. And so what I do is I give my students the access to a free tool. I've not fully, this is cloud-based. It's Microsoft bought it. So I've not fully flushed it out, but it's been working for over 9 months now, and so that's all I have to share with the disclaimer aspect of it. But what I'm about to show you is a tool I use called Flipgrid. And I wish I could give proper recognition of who gave me this idea, or I stumbled across it on the internet. But no less, it's a tool where, if you notice the instructions, I copy and paste, and I give them a link to where they can go and access this. And they typically do this on their phone. And so they'll use their own mobile device, iPad or their own Android or iPhone, and there's an app for this that they happen to download and put onto their phone. And so I'll give you a glimpse of it. But what I do is I give them feedback. I give them a little cryptic feedback. This is a little silly. I'm getting away from this. But I've learned not to give them the same codes. I use WebAssign's random number generator to give them a code that shows that I've graded it. And so the feedback I give is actually in Flipgrid at the moment. So this is what it looks like. So I'm using a tool called Flipgrid, and I embed it like we did the videos. I embed the assignment. The assignment is what they call topics. And when you look in this, you'll start to see these different topics. So I'm doing some things for this elementary ed class. Some of it was procedural. Some of it was designed for them to show manipulative. So they don't have to always record their screens of WebAssign, which they do, because we have virtual manipulatives, explorits, things that I want them to talk about. And I give them very short periods of time. So I give them only 2 minutes or only a minute, which is so crucial to set the stage as to how much time can I devote to watching and grading this content. So I'm very selective to not tax myself. I make mistakes still and overdo it. But I think you'll get a glimpse here. I'll let Gracie's a good one. So you get an idea. This is the feedback that she gives, and then I can return feedback as well. And so they can record, they introduce themselves and record. That's been disruptive to what was some concerns over cheating or submitting work that wasn't their own. And this has been really powerful to selectively pick questions that seem to represent a multi-step question, give them a few minutes to convey it, upload it, and put it in this free storage space. I don't pay for any of this, and they don't seem to be willing to charge at the moment. And so I'm able to construct these and roll these over from semester to semester. So when you look at my list of classes here, I've been using it for a fair amount since last fall. And it's really worked in engineering courses, math courses. I see it getting a lot of advantage. My weakness in design, if you haven't noticed, is in group work. And that's where I need to spend some time to try to create situations. So beyond the independent learning, more the group learning, team learning that I also wish to provide to my students.
Well, this has been really helpful, Mike. I think we're getting a 2-minute warning. So any things we want to touch on before we jump off?
This is a first for me, so I hope this was helpful. I have usually just a procedural sort of fellow. To optimize your course, I've shared something that's can be a bit embarrassing because I don't know how good it is or how bad it is. So I hope you find little nuggets of information that can help your course improve just a bit more. I turned to my mentor many years ago, Dr. Greg Foley here at Ohio University, and he gave me that wise advice. Try to make a small modicum change, maybe 10% maximum, a portion of your course, and over time, it has evolved to where I think it's looking pretty good. My students are giving me constructive feedback to the design, and I think now you may benefit from that learning curve to where you can get your students up and running and learning more and more each day. Thank you, Shauna. I hope now I can...
Thank you. We have just one last poll to put on the screen as we close out. We really appreciate everybody joining this session. I know there are some final Q&A in the chat, so we're looking at, we're going through those and answering them, and we'll find a way to get the answers out to all of you. So really appreciate all of your time, and we hope this is really helpful for you.